After all the toxicity to do with mods, it got me thinking, why don't we go down memory lane and talk about what are some of the mods that we've lost in Path of Titans. Today we talk about 5 forgotten mods for Path of Titans, now lost in the archives of time. This one's really interesting to me because there is only one video of it that exists on the internet, and this is from Jin. I wasn't even around when this mod released. This was the Lunar Escape mod. And by the way, shout out to Jin because they let me include bits of the videos in this video. And also their intro to their video is full of space jokes. I recommend you check it out. They were out of this world. This is a modded map that was released around May 17th, 2020, which is quite an old one. This was technically before modding was a thing, I'm pretty sure. This is one of the first ever mod maps that made it to the game, and truthfully, it didn't even last that long. But what was this map? Well, I'm pretty sure this was a map that was technically made by Jiggy, but it was a simple premise. It was literally dinosaurs on the moon. Quite a barren surface with rocks and other features, a deep dark night sky and the earth in the background visible for you to see instead of the sun. Well, I guess the sun was visible too. This map also featured a unique feature with it, and that was low gravity. No other map had this at the time, and most importantly, there was no official low gravity feature within the game. Your dinosaurs were weighted differently, so the movement looked a bit different, and when you jumped, you kind of floated in the air a little bit as well. All in all, this map was a small map, just to mess around on, but within the same year, the map disappeared from the modding scene, never to be seen again. Kinda would love to see a moon map again in the game, but it is what it is. Going back all the way to the game's crowdfunding campaign back in 2019, you'll see mentions of 4 mods. Primordial Tyrants, the Grim Expanse, Cerulean Island, and a mod that never existed within Path of Titans and never came to the game, Pangaea Insula. This was a mod map made by Ethos. It was claimed to be set in a sprawling mountain landscape, capped with snowy peaks, where players could explore dense spruce forests and flowery grasslands, also featuring dark caves as well, canyons and hidden worlds for you to explore. The map would be a little smaller than Pangaea, as it was 7x7 in its size, compared to Pangaea being 9x9 in size. Now it's important to note that this wasn't just a Path of Titans mod. This was a map that was available on the Isle Legacy at the time, and it was a very big fan favourite. But as a Path of Titans mod, it was getting quite a bit of work done to it. Shown all the way back in 2019 by Ethos himself, showcasing the foliage and overall world your dinosaurs would be in. But what's crazier is there would be more maps. Ethos had big plans here, with Pangaea Ultima, Pangaea Insula, Pangaea Tundra, and apparently more to come like Pangaea Primal Growth. Now what happened to this map was a mystery. The last comment by Ethos about the map indicates he was restoring Pangaea Insula after some issues with the files and had planned to redo all of the assets. This was back in 2020, and it's highly likely he might have just burnt out on the project. Back in 2021, he mentioned he was easing back into the community, but then he only sent 2 messages after that, with the final one being on the 12th of August this year. It's safe to say it's unlikely Pangaea Insula will ever come to fruition. A map that had a lot of promise with it, and was very much a fan favourite. We'll never know what stopped this map from coming out, but we know it will likely never come to the game. Now I'm throwing in 2 for the price of 1 in 3rd place spot. This is Neovenator and Yutyrannus, and let's start off with Neovenator because this is the more recent one. This was released on the 20th of September 2021 and was made by Pete. This was Pete's first and only mod, and this was a medium-sized carnivore. It was based on the rig of the Metriacanthosaurus, which was quite evident with some of the calls, because the aggressive call sounded like that of the Metries. The dinosaur was equipped with a singular bite, and it had no other customizable abilities, but it is important to note that this was during the time of abilities being few and far between on most official dinosaurs as well, and mods being very limited in their kit due to restrictions with the mod kit. The mod featured 6 skins too, with a default skin and 5 other skins, all with pattern and colour variations. The model was a nice model, it fit in with the game's roster as well, and it felt like a good playable to play despite it being limited. Although this mod didn't last too long, it ended up being removed later in the year as it simply wasn't updated with the game. But this was one of the earlier mods to release in the game, and the mod that I'm going to be talking about next is even earlier than this one. This is the Yutyrannus. Also, it's the same situation. Not to be mistaken with the primordial tyrants Yutyrannus, this was the first ever Yutyrannus mod to come to the game, and if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the first ever playable that was a mod that came with some form of feathering. And it wasn't just texturing, because on the back of the head and the back limbs, it also had quite a bit there as well. The mod was released by a user called Ram or Rem, and well, this is older than the Neovenator as I've mentioned, being released on the 4th of June of 2021, shortly after the modern kit became public. While I'm not sure on the abilities it had, it featured one skin, a handful of different species, a bite and tail attack, and was based on the Metriacanthosaurus rig, which was obvious while it was running. This also ended up leaving the game roughly around the same time as the Neovenator, as it simply fell out of line with the game's updates. But if we go back a little bit further, or well, a little bit more recently, because on the 19th of January 2022, AI entered into the game with the Platyhystrix. Now that's not actually what I'm talking about, because if you go back a bit further, even go back before the Yutyrannus, you'll find a playable Platyhystrix mod, and this mod came out way before the Platyhystrix even was in the game. In fact, this was one of 5 mods when modding released, alongside the Rainbow Dinosaurs, Lunar Expanse, Stoneclaw Highlands, and the Grim Expanse, sat the little playable Platyhystrix mod by Jiggy, and it made Platy playable within the game. This mod featured one species, Platyhystrix rugosus, as well as 3 skins which showcased the different variations of Platy at the time, which you can see in game when you find the AI critter. This was also something that had a lot of colour customizations as well. This little guy had several emotes, from calls to digging and looking around, and at the time it first released it didn't have any attacks at all, but later down the line it did get attacks. I know that because I hosted a battle royale with the Platyhystrix mod later, I think in 2021. This honestly was one of my favourite mods at the time. It was simple, and like with most mods at the time, they were all simple, which made them quite endearing. It's really cool to see how far modding has came anyways, because you can compare these older mods to the newer mods and just see how varied things are now. This was made by Jiggy, and I assume maintaining this was a lot harder than the maps. However, I would absolutely die for a playable Platyhystrix mod to come back to the game, and luckily we had a teaser of that by Pheilong's Wrath of the Goliaths modding team earlier this year, so that dream could come back to life. We have a quick bonus mod to showcase here, because this is the Chaos Trike. This was to be the first mod, I believe, first or second mod, that had fire breathing abilities. And it was literally a fire-breathing EO Triceratops. This was made by Akil, also known as Extinction Mods, and was technically going to have more, because there was meant to be a Chaos Spinosaurus as well, which never released. The model of this one was absolutely awesome. It had a huge frill, it had some big horns, covered in spikes, and it was a heavily modified EO Triceratops. The fire breath was only through emotes, with the broadcast and the aggressive emotes having it visible. This had most of the usual EO Trike kit, with a front stomp, the charge and sharpened horns, and well, it could also eat fish as well, which makes me think maybe we do a video talking about lost features like the EO Trike stomp. However, probably the biggest loss for mods that we've had in a while, and the most recent big loss in terms of a map, was Cerulean Island. This was an insanely beautiful map, set within a tropical island and vast biomes, from lush forests to grassy plains, swampy biomes, big caves, some of them being massive sprawling cave systems. Some had lava, some had parkour, there was coral reefs, vast underwater caves, and so much more. This was a map made by Oida, and alongside Teutonia, are probably the 2 most iconic modded maps in this list, aside from the Grim Expanse and Stoneclaw 2, because they were pretty awesome. This was probably the map you've probably unironically seen, as it was from this YouTube short with some offices on the beach that got 6.2 million views. There was so much to explore with this map. It was incredibly popular, but what happened to it? Unfortunately, the map's developer decided, due to their own personal reasons, to stop updating the map, and as a result of that, the map simply fell out of the game's update cycle over a year ago. This one's a sad one. It was so well made, it had so many memories. I still get asked about this one in streams, and it's quite heartbreaking to see. However, with Teutonia recently returning, maybe we could see Cerulean Island see the light of day. But, unfortunately, if Oida doesn't really want to update it, then it's up to them, and we probably won't see it. Which is a shame, because this was one of the maps that was advertised in the game's crowdfunding campaign as a mod, So it's been here since the beginning of time for this game. And it's got so many memories too. And there you have it, everybody. There's 5 mods that have been lost and forgotten to Path of Titans. I'm actually thinking of doing a bigger video where I go through every single lost mod and have like 30 seconds per mod and just kind of go through it. I was seeing some YouTube videos where people were doing that with Minecraft features, and I think it's a really cool idea to do that with Path of Titans features as well, because it will show you what we've lost over time through this game. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Which mod do you miss the most? And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.